So I am ready for a different project renovation, but this time indoors because it's so cold outside. We've had loads of snow and ice, and this is the second master bedroom. It's exactly the same size as ours. The only downside about this room, why we didn't use this one, even though it gets more natural daylight in the morning, is there's no ensuite here. So what we're going to do is play musical bedrooms. We're going to renovate this from top to bottom, and then we're going to move into here temporarily. Then we can work on the other bedroom, work on the very dated ensuite. It is gross in there. So I don't want to talk too much about the plans yet, apart from obvious wallpaper needs to go. I've got loads of filling the walls. The ceiling, the skim is coming off. Anyway, I really like these wardrobes, built-in wardrobes, and the dressing table. Yes, it's my dumping ground. But if you come closer here, the whole melamine stuff is coming off throughout. So I've decided I'm going to rip this off and I'm going to paint it. It's exactly the same over here as well. It's torn there, coming off here, and even where it joins, it's actually shrunk. So I'm going to make use of what we've got. I like the idea of hunkering down in here and just staying nice and dry and listen to music while I do it, and hopefully I can inspire you and know you won't be bored. I think Hans, look at him, he is begging for a carpet. He's on the only scrap of carpet. Who likes being on bare concrete floors? Anyway, just yesterday, this was full of stuff. I mean, this is bad now. It was worse, full of bikes and stuff. So I've had to try and hide things as much as we can, and I've had to create more storage in the loft. So now we need to empty these, and these are all full of our camping stuff, some exercise stuff. So that's what we're going to do now. Completely empty it and try and hide things. So it's become very echoey in here, so I apologise. Hopefully it'll get better when we've got more furniture in. But the first two jobs we want to do is, well, fix the ceiling. We know that's not going to be a quick job, and do the wallpaper stripping. So I'm first going to start removing any of the curtain rail screws and wall screws for Mr. TZD to come along and use his wallpaper stripper. Then I'm going to work on the ceiling. And I hate having to use flat screwdrivers. They should be banned. Well, it's not putting up much of a fight, so I'm happy. There's a hole in that coving. Very, very filthy up here. Ah, nice. Nice big crack. Does anyone still use curtain tiebacks anymore? Let me see. Huh? No, don't know. Oh, I need a thinner one. So all the screws are out apart from these bolt things for the curtain tie backs. I've no idea how to get those out yet. I think they're just hammered in with a raw plug. But now we've got our wallpaper steamer, and while we're waiting for that, we've been pulling it off by hand. Probably making things worse. No, maybe not. This one looks like an easy win. Felt a bit tough, that. I think it's going to be quite easy in here. The blessing here is there's not a million and one layers to get off, and there's no wood chip wallpaper either. That is a devil. Anyway, it's ready. Ugh. Did I ever tell you I hate wallpaper? I hate applying it, I hate taking it off, and I get bored of it very quickly in a house. Painting walls, to me, is so much easier. You can change it anytime you want, or you can change it quicker. So I'm going to leave this to Mr. TCD while I work on the ceiling. The fun jobs. Wow, that's thick. Oh, come on. Come on. Gotcha. Oh, the whole board's wobbly. So it quickly became apparent that I needed to screw the board back up. And this is me working out which way the trusses go, which is where I'm stood is the gable end of the house. Problem, I didn't know where my stud finder was, or a magnet. Oh, I'm going to try and screw this. So because there's been a fair amount of wobble there, I've had to start putting some new drywall screws in there, and it seems to be working. So I'm going to chip some of this back so I can get some screws in, and then hopefully it'll be sturdy, and I'm just going to put some scrim tape and skim over it. I start by trying to remove any loose bits where I can, and also put screws in and check to make sure the wobble had gone. I also chamfered the cracks with the corner of a filling knife. Oh, I nearly fell. Then just screwed drywall screws straight through the plaster to the boards with my impact driver. This would also sometimes chip or crack the plaster, so I'd have to remove a bit more. In fact, most of the edges of the board on this ceiling had cracks. Right, it's the morning after, and as you can see, I've made a right mess of the ceiling. There's that many cracks. And I know some of you are going to say, why don't you overboard it? I'm not overboarding it because I've got coving as well. And to be honest, I think overboarding is just as time consuming as doing what I'm doing, which is scoring out all of the cracks. That was definitely the worst one, which it had bounce. I don't think the others really have it. So what I'm going to do is just use some tape. So I might end up just skimming the whole ceiling with my speed skim. Anyway, I've still got this area to do, but because this is a lot more time consuming than wallpaper stripping, I think, Mr. TCD has come to a halt because we need to take this mirror off. Anyway, last night we were scratching our heads trying to work out how does this come off because we've got brackets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it felt like there were a bit of give in this, and I thought, surely there's no other way than lifting it up. So obviously it's hardwired, so I think this just slots off and that this is independent. Anyway, I don't know whether I'm going to reuse this. God, she's good. Don't break it. Don't break it. I don't really like it. I think it's a bit dated. And I'll have a think of what I'm going to do with it. So we've turned the lighting electrics off, and we're going to remove this from the wall so we can get behind it. I'm using Wago connectors to terminate them until we've finished renovating the room and stored them in this lighting junction box. Right, now I can finish screwing the roof. Yeah. So we've got a mean crack over there with a raw plug right in the middle. Let's get our screw. Oh, that came out nicely. I much prefer a claw hammer and a screw to remove raw plugs instead of that viral corkscrew hack, which has never worked. Because I'd made the ceiling look very angry with all the wider cracks, I rolled and brushed everywhere with watered down SBR. Or you could use PVA solution, so any skim that I put on adheres better. It's another horrible day. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. That starts up here. So I'm not using paper tape this time. I don't know if I told you that earlier, because paper tape can be a devil with long stretches, trying to make sure there's no bubbles and a crease in the centre. So I'm going to use mesh tape. That might mean skimming more over it. I don't care. I think it's going to be quicker. Just adding a caveat to that, if the cracks were shorter and not the full length of a board, then I'd probably use paper tape, because I find when you apply with a wet filler, soak the paper in water, then stick it up and smooth it out, it sticks very well. And with it also absorbing the filler, it's a doddle to feather it in and blend with the ceiling. But the longer the paper tape is, the trickier it is. So if anything dries out a little bit, you can get bubbles, and that can cost you a lot of time. Once that's up, I'm going to be filling these, mixing some Easy Fill 60. Now, the reason I'm doing that is, it's called pre-filling. I'm filling as much as I can, and I'm not making it proud. I'll leave that to dry, and then I can do a final skim. I'll probably have to seal whatever I'm doing here. I know that because I've SBR'd it, it's more likely to stick up there. But if I hadn't have done that, it will just fall off very likely, and that's happened before. And while I'm doing that, Mr. TCD is going to be filling any of the holes that you see. But you've seen that before. That's boring stuff. And I've got the world's most dangerous Stanley knife that does not retract. Must have been a cheap one. Can't find the other ones. It's definitely better to do this kind of job this time of year because in the summer, ceiling work gets really sweaty. Oh, thanks. Come on. After mixing a 1 kilogram batch of EasyFill 60, I start filling any popped plasterboard where nails were with a 3-inch filling knife. Then go over the scrim tape while firmly pressing into the cracks and the areas where I'd removed a lot of plaster. But because I didn't want any raised bits, because this is just the first pass, I then removed any excess with a much larger drywall spreading knife. Turns out old lockdown masks do have a purpose. Anyway, what I'm doing now is just gently removing any nibs of the EasyFill 60, taking them off with this soft sander. I know what some of you are going to say, why don't you just skim the whole lot in one go? Because I am not a professional. And EasyFill is not great for anything beyond 3 mil, to be honest. And I find it easy to work with. God, when you look at this ceiling, it is so wavy. Woo! I also thought I'd check with a straight edge to see if there were any discrepancies. Yeah, there's still quite a bit there. And it's not a coin anyway, it's not a pound coin. Once I was happy enough, I went over the filler again with SBR because it's better safe than sorry later. So most of the SBR is dry now. I do have some heaters on this side of the room, which is the last area I'm going to work on. And for the final coat, or maybe 2 if it shrinks, I'm going to be using, you know what, it'll be easier if I lower you. Pro again. And I've bought myself a new roller for it, which is a scrunchy type of wiry roller. Now this can leave bits in the skim, which isn't pleasant, so I might have to pick some bits out. At least my last one did. But I find this stuff very forgiving for beginners because it doesn't dry very quickly. You've got loads of time, which isn't that important on a ceiling because you're not going to touch it by mistake later. And it gives you time to try and get it perfect. And I find it's also really easy to sand out any blemishes if needed. And when I used it on my hallway ceiling last, didn't really have to do much of that because I used a straight edge. By the way, as for straight edges, I've got a 900mm long speed skim, but I couldn't resist and I bought this one as well because I fancy flexi metal blade. Mind you, this is flexible as well. You can buy metal blades for this, but it was just as cheap to buy that. I've also got a bucket of water with some trowels here, just in case. And obviously I'll be stepping on my platform as well. Oh, and goggles. Don't want anything in my eyes. Dooby-dooby-doo. Oh. And let's not forget these work lights, which I've had to put you on low light mode so I don't get flickering. Hopefully not. Let's get this open. Hey. Right. So if you've never used Pro Roll Nova before, it's basically a ready mix filler that you apply with a roller instead of a trowel. Expect to pay about £38 for a 12-litre tub, and it's great for filling shallow dips, joints, and smoothing walls and ceilings. Don't expect deep holes because it's only great for about 2 mil at a time. And I find the consistency is really smooth. It spreads easily, and the idea of rolling it on saves a lot of time and arm ache compared to traditional plastering, particularly when you don't know what you're doing and you don't know when to stop. And instead of waiting for this to set and then flattening it off, I smooth it over with a large flexi trowel. Now originally I was going to do the entire ceiling, but when the moment came, I decided to make my life easier and just work on feathering in the joins. What I did want to buy but didn't though is a long pole to attach to it, but you also need an expensive clasp. maybe in my next room. But with me finding many areas wavy as hell, could be due to me nipping up the boards, I'm not sure it would have been better in this situation. Oh, and I wouldn't worry too much about trowel lines and slight marks. They stand out very easily and they're hard to spot after. But anything you're not happy with, you can go over it again anyway, just like this. So it's been about 12 hours and a lot of the areas are dry, but where it's thicker, it's not, particularly like up there where it's darker. You see that stretch there? So it might not look great right now, but I do know it stands out really, really well. And you can't really see any blemishes. And yeah, I'm actually back in this room because I'm not entirely happy where the mesh tape is with some of them. It still feels a little bit textured, and before I even sand anything, I'm just going to go over it and feather it a little bit more just on the mesh tape areas. Not all of them, just probably there, a bit there, a bit there. I know I'm going to be obsessive with that anyway. Just put a bit on. I'm just going gently over there. And this was dry by the next day, which sometimes, if thicker, like when I skimmed my 2mm stop beads around my archway, it took about 2 days to dry. So right now, all I'm doing is giving it a very gentle sand with a 220 grit spongy sanding block, removing any accidental raised bits like trowel lines, while constantly feeling with my hands for any unwanted texture. So now I'm happy with the ceiling. I'm cutting into the ceiling with a 50-50 mist coat of emulsion paint and water. And I'm going over the areas where my Dalapro is. I accidentally caught it on the comb as well, so I'm just doing that. Can I just do it from here? It'd be nice if we do it from here. Yay! Oh no! All over me! For some insurance, I decided to paint the ceiling with Polycel's crack-free ceilings, which is painful by the way at £47 for 5 litres. Anyway, as you can see, it's very thick and it claims to be a smooth, matte, flexible paint, but it's definitely not a true matte finish in my eyes. It definitely leaves a bit of a sheen. But I used this on our awful hall ceiling a couple of years ago after doing a lot of repairs, and the cracks have never come back. In the end, I gave it 2 coats of the crack-free ceiling paint. So let's have a quick reminder of how it used to look. And this is how it turned out. I have to say, considering I'm not a plasterer, at least with thistle plaster, multi-finish, I'm very happy with the results. The only thing I'm not entirely happy with is it's not a true matte finish. So if you've got any other flaws on your ceiling, they're probably going to be highlighted, but it's certainly not as matte as the rest of the house. So what I'm probably going to do is go over it again with a matte emulsion, just so it absorbs the light. But you can see a bit of sheen around the light, which is definitely stronger on an evening. Now, hopefully in the future, I will feel more confident to actually use plaster to skim a ceiling. But that's why I love the Dalapro, because if you're not a professional, you don't necessarily know what you're doing, it's very, very forgiving. But it's not great over anything that's more than 2mm thick. Otherwise, you're waiting days for things to dry. I've also got to give credit to Mr. TCD for the walls because they are looking so much better. It's filled all of the cracks, all of the holes, and I definitely don't miss that tatty wallpaper. But the next thing we've got to think about is, well, wall colours. We have been picking a few things, particularly like these different kind of greens for the dressing table and the wardrobe. And I've also been using ChatGPT to help me with that because I'm not an interior designer. But a strong contender is Valspar's Float Your Boat. I'm looking for a coastal theme in here. In fact, I think it looks a bit darker on camera. Mr. TCD thought it'd look nice with the calamine from Farrow & Ball, but I'll be getting that mixed up. I'm definitely not paying Farrow & Ball prices. And other things we want to do is match the skirting board to the rest of the house, and this doesn't. So we're looking at those stick-on ones that cover over it, which has got a rebate on the back. And the major thing in here is we need to start chasing some walls, because look, there is one double socket in here and we struggled with all our extra lights that we needed. That just isn't enough, particularly for things like mobile phones and maybe a TV. So I'm going to treat myself to a wall chaser for that. And I need to try and find a new mirror. I definitely don't like the other one. So if you've got any recommendations of where you would look for one of those, then let me know. So I hope this has been useful and that you've learned some tips and tricks along the way for a bedroom renovation you've got on your to-do list. And I want to know as well, have you experienced the Della Pro, and was it a good one or a bad one? I think it's certainly got its uses. It's not perfect for every application, but it is for dodgy walls and ceilings. And next week, I can't wait to tear this all off, because it's driving me insane and it's boring. It's a bit too beige for my liking. Oh, and if you've been wondering where I've been, I highly recommend checking me out on Instagram, because we've got some exciting news to share, which you can find out now over there, or wait till next week. Anyway, I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.